who downplay its gravity.
There are folks who will equivocate. They'll say, you know, I'm not a scientist. Well, I'm not either. But the best scientists in the world know that climate change is happening. Our analysts in the intelligence community know climate change is happening. Our military leaders, generals and admirals, active duty and retired, know it's happening.
Joining us now is one of those retired members of the military, Vice Admiral Lee Gunn, who served in the U.S. Navy for 35 years. Also with us, Andrew Holland, Senior Fellow for Energy and Climate at the American Security Project. Gentlemen, welcome to Chicago tonight. And you're both associated with the American Security Project. First of all, Andrew Holland, what exactly is the American Security Project?
We're a nonpartisan national security think tank based in D.C., started about 10 years ago with the idea of getting back to a bipartisan national security perspective. We look at a whole range of issues, and climate change is one of the ones that we've taken on.
Vice Admiral Lee Gunn, your reaction to the President's comments in May?
Well, of course, I'm very nicely aligned with what the President was saying. I am, in fact, one of those military leaders who understands that climate change is a serious national security challenge. And let me start by telling you a story, if that's okay.
Sure.
The Marine Corps has always been a pretty open place, and the Commandant says that anyone can talk to him. And so in the middle of the 2000s, about 2006, a Marine First Lieutenant who was a platoon leader in Afghanistan sent an email to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and he said, "Boss," I'm paraphrasing easily right now, but he said, "Boss, here on the front lines, our 120-pound kit that we have to carry with us on patrol includes a lot of batteries. And so my troops have asked their parents to forward to us the fold-out solar cells that are so compact so that we can reduce the number of batteries we carry when we go on a multi-day patrol." Later, it was clear as well, as we were winding down Iraq and while we were still actively involved in Afghanistan, the 3,000 soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen had been killed in the process of supporting and driving convoys and protecting them. Convoys mostly of liquids, mostly of fuel. And so the generators that were run on those demand that kind of support, and today's electronics require it as well. Well, what does that mean? It means that the leadership of the services, among other things, have to attack in every way they can the logistics chain that exposes servicemen and women to the kind of dangers that they've suffered here.
Andrew Holland, connect the dots for us, continue to connect the dots for us in terms of the connection between global warming and national security.
So what we mean when we say climate change is a threat to national security, we say it's a threat multiplier or an accelerant of instability. So what that means is we don't expect that 2 degrees of warming is automatically going to cause wars, but what it will do is it will impact things like water security, food security, which leads to migration, which then leads to instability and could lead to more wars, more threats. You know, you could go around the world and talk about hotspots.
Give me an example of where this is already happening.
Sure. We talk about it. Syria is probably the prime example. Now, nobody's going to say that Syria was started because of climate change. But let's be very clear. They had the worst drought in their history from 2006 to 2010, just before the civil war there started. And that drought caused about 1.5 million to 2 million people to move off their farms and move into the cities. And those people are now involved in the civil war. They were ready to revolt against Assad. So these things are serious and are happening now.
Lee Gunn, some people might look at that kind of instability that climate change might cause and maybe not get the connection between climate change, instability, and national defense. What would you add to connect those dots?
Sure. I think it's understandable that people don't necessarily come to the same conclusion that we do, but the American military is expected to plan for every eventuality and to represent America all throughout the world. What the service does, what the services do, in addition to actually preparing for and conducting combat, are humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations. We establish and sustain stability, which is very important for international trade. It's important to the people we sell things to from the United States and important to the people who sell things to us. And so international commerce for the last 50 years has been pretty much assured. The safety of that commerce has been pretty much assured by the American military. As weather events, extreme weather events become greater and more frequent, as people move in response to climate change in their particular region where they've become accustomed to their lives and seek a better place, that causes conflict. All of that contributes to instability, and the military is going to be expected, in fact, to contend with that. And so we're worried about the young men and women, the young Americans who put the nation's uniform on in the future and are asked to contend with these issues.
Andrew Holland, as you know, there's still deep-seated skepticism and many scorn in some instances about whether or not climate change is really happening. Is there anything you can add to the discussion that would persuade people that to your point of view?
Yeah, you know, I'm a Republican. Before coming to the American Security Project, I spent my career in politics working for Republican politicians. And what that means is it's so nice for me to work with the military because it's about risk management, it's about fact-based analysis. And so when we talk to people like Admiral Gunn and a range of our retired generals and admirals, it's nice because they say, okay, here what's happening, what do we expect could happen, and what's the risk. So this is about facts and this is about risk. And you know, maybe we should take a lesson from the military in our political system and think about risk and think about it in a fact-based, science-based way.
Admiral, as you know, some people make the argument that this emphasis on climate change is actually weakening national security because the real bad guys are ISIS. The real bad guys are potential terrorists. It's not carbon dioxide that's invading this country. Thought, your reaction?
Well, of course. And I understand that point of view. I don't agree with it. I've been in refugee camps in northern Kenya, the Somali refugee camps. Somalia was the last engagement that I was involved in. And I've seen the potential for the cultivation, for the recruiting by ISIL and other organizations of that type to give some purpose, some hope to the young men who have none otherwise. And I think that the services are going to have to contend with not only this worldwide demand, increase in demand for their assistance, but also we're going to have to manage our protection of our own facilities. The Navy has 30 Navy facilities on the coastline that are exposed to one degree or another of sea level rise. So this is an important issue for us.
Andrew Holland, what do you have to add to that in terms of the public discussion, public debate over the connection, you know, between global warming and security issues?
Yeah, you know, what I'd say is that we pay our national security professionals to think about threats and anticipate them and then do things to mitigate those threats. So if we get upset with them if they miss out on threats. We got upset with our military and had huge investigations after World War II and missing Pearl Harbor. We got upset with the CIA for missing Al-Qaeda and not connecting the dots on 9/11. Let's not miss this and not connect the dots on the threats here between climate change and national security.
Admiral, what do you want people to take away from what you're doing?
I want people to understand that there is a real national security perspective on the issue of climate change, that the threat is genuine, that the military is preparing in the way we all expect the military to plan for future eventualities. We want people to be receptive to the notions that are put forth by almost the entire scientific community, that climate change is real and that human contribution is important. I also would like people to understand that it's not all doom and gloom. In fact, in my view, there's the potential for real improvement in America's competitiveness. And I think we ought to take advantage of that, develop technology and research and development. And if we can make those investments, I think it will